All right. This is the Story Series podcast where we tell the stories behind the people. Agnes Lee, welcome.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm so excited to be here. So blessed.
I'm thrilled to meet you. This is our first time meeting here, as of a couple minutes ago when you got to the studio.
Yes, that is correct.
Your story is such a fantastic example of the power of social media, resilience, and how the publishing industry is evolving. I thought we'd start with just a brief introduction of how you came onto my and everybody's radar back in, what was it, December?
Yeah, sometime in December. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I love this story, but it's also kind of embarrassing because it was such a low point for me. And, I think 14 million people have seen it, internationally as well. But to get it started, I'm a self-publisher. And as a self-publisher, you have to do all the marketing yourself. So I reached out to the Barnes & Noble closest to me. And there was a lot of communication errors. I wasn't aware that I was going to get a table. So when I arrived, they said, "This is your table." And I said, "What? I thought I was just doing a reading." And they said, "Oh, no, here's a table too. And to get your reading started, we'll just have an announcement in the store." And so I was so confused because I was asking the employees through email, how is this going to work? And they said, "Yeah, we're going to advertise it." And I guess advertising just meant in the store on that day.
So you show up, because you're a children's book author, so you show up with your book thinking it's going to be a reading. There's already going to be kids waiting for you.
Yes.
And instead you show up and they're like, "Oh, here's a table." And that's it.
Yes. So I was so nervous because I was there by myself. It was a Sunday. All my friends and family, they were at church. And I didn't think a book signing was that important to come and have support. No, it really is. It really is. And so I got there and I only had several books with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go back home. And so thankfully, it was locally, so it was only 15 minutes, and I was able to grab some bulks with me. And there's this one trick that I do, and it's a sign that says, "Ask me about my book and spin for a prize." And so at my other events, that has done well, but I'm assuming at bookstores it doesn't. And so I did my reading with only 3 kids there, and that was already discouraging. And then I was just sitting at my booth by myself. And my phone was at 10%, so I couldn't even go on my phone that much. I had to preserve it. So I was there in my thoughts, and I was thinking, why am I doing this? This is so embarrassing. I bought a new dress. I did my hair. I did my makeup. I did everything to look good, and everybody's ignoring me. So yeah, in that time, I was just so discouraged. I was embarrassed. I thought everybody was making fun of me. The employees are thinking, wow, that's so sad. And so I just wanted to quit. And the thing is at Barnes & Noble, they said that I could stay there as long as I want. So I told myself, I'll just stay there the whole time, right? People will come by. Some people came, but after 6 hours, I told myself, you know what, I can't handle this anymore, so I'm just going to go. And so that's basically it.
That's basically it. But did you realize that there was an employee that took a video at that time?
Yeah.
When did you find out that someone took a video and then posted it to social media?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of that. And I'm assuming, I still don't really know who it is till this day because I'm actually embarrassed to go back to that Barnes & Noble. And so I'm assuming it's this one person that I talked to the most. And she was super nice. She was so caring for me. And she told me that she would come and talk to me during breaks and everything, and she did. So I'm assuming it's her. I found out through my little sister actually, because she goes on TikTok a lot, and it started trending. And she goes, "Agnes, this is you!" And I was so embarrassed.
I can imagine because you're describing this as a real low point for you, and now it's public.
Yes.
But then something starts to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct. It started building so much more traction. At first, 50K, 100K, 1 million, and then it jumps to 14 million. I was like, what the freak? I was this is so embarrassing.
That's amazing. And then fast forward, your books sell out.
Yes.
And how many books did you sell at that signing?
At that signing, I sold 9.
9.
Yes.
And then you sell out within hours?
Within 3 days.
3 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, one of those 14 million views was me, and I saw that and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" So I wonder, like, how local is she? And anyway, that's what prompted me to reach out, because at the same time I was putting this podcast together, and I was like, "Gosh, that would be so cool to talk to her." And here we are. So wonderful. That's an amazing just introduction for those who don't know who you are. I'd love to go back. I like to start with origin stories.
Okay.
So if you could, where did you grow up?
Yeah, I actually live not too far from here, Simi Valley. That's where I grew up, actually. And then I momentarily moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And then I came back to California, and now I live in Corona.
In Corona. And growing up, were you an especially creative child?
I would say creative, yes. I was really busy with gymnastics because I actually was a competitive gymnast for 8 years. And so I think that's where my creativity came, because I was always in the gym 5 hours, basically every day, getting yelled at by Russian coaches, telling me I didn't point my toes enough, I didn't straighten my arms enough. And so I felt like I didn't have a childhood because I was always in the gym. And so because of that, I was always drawn to animation, actually, and children's stories and just everything children, not in a weird way or anything, but it's because I didn't experience that in my life. And so because of things like that, I think I started getting these grand ideas of just things that didn't really make sense, really creating stories and really falling in love with stuff like animation, where you know how animation works, animation physics, where, you know, you could fling something and it can go all the way out to space. And I loved that because it didn't make any sense. Whereas in gymnastics, everything had to make sense.
You know, I talked to another kind of extremely competitive athlete whose childhood was all basketball, and they don't have time for much else.
Yeah.
And in that person's case, it didn't work out for them, like going on to a career.
Yeah.
And after that decision was made to not continue, there was almost a freedom that they felt like they could now, it's like, who am I when I'm not doing this sport?
Yes. And I get so serious when it comes to competitive sports because, you know, it was such a prominent lifestyle for me. And now that I don't have it, I'm 24 years old, and, you know, it's the basic time of what do I do? You know, what career do I want to pursue? And honestly, I'm a Christian, and I really was talented through the grace of God. I could have gone further, but my dad pushed me way too much. He made me do 300 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups every single day. Yeah, and if I wasn't going to do that, every 30 minutes, I would have to do 100 pull-ups. And so it was either one or the other. So I was always working out, always having my mind on something. And so with that, I feel like when I quit, I didn't know what to do. I regret it still to this day, and I'm trying to get over that, where if I had continued, I would have had a future. I would have had a more direct line. But now that I'm free, this line like curves, it goes backwards, it shoots up, it goes in every kind of direction, and I'm just confused.
But that's a good time in your life to do that.
Yeah.
When did you decide to quit gymnastics?
In the beginning of my high school year.
High school year?
Yes.
Okay, so did you have any idea what you wanted to study in high school and post-high school?
I really just wanted freedom. So similar to the previous person you talked to, I really wanted to hang out with friends. I really wanted to go shopping, do a lot of hobbies that I wasn't able to do before. So I wasn't even thinking about career. Had I known career, I probably would have just stayed.
And when you get close to graduate, what do you think you're going to do after high school? Do you have any college plans like at that time?
Yeah, college plans. I was thinking maybe I'll do business, but my dad, being an Asian dad, was pushing for being a lawyer. So I told myself, okay, business or lawyer. So then I entered UC Davis and I studied business. And during some time, I actually studied for the LSAT, took it 3 times, and I'm in the middle of applying for law school just for my dad to hear. You know, I'm still trying to figure myself out, trying to have time to figure out, do I really want to go to law school or do I want to do this? You know, and so I'm finding myself, I really love this creativity. I love seeing how everything is put together. One thing I don't like is marketing.
Well, and when did writing stories come in? When did you start like flexing that muscle?
Yeah, it came about a year ago, a year or two ago. I would say that's when I became more serious. When I was younger, actually, when I was in the car ride to practice, I would write short stories. And I remember I made them into like infinity characters and I would put eyes on them and they would be like super short, kind of like Calvin and Hobbes, like kind of story. And so, yeah, wouldn't have gone serious until like 2 years ago.
And what happened 2 years ago that made you kind of pursue or
Yeah.
give that a try?
I went inside Barnes and Noble and I was walking through the children's book section because that's typically the only section I go to. And I noticed this book called Who Took My Hat or Where's My Hat by John Klassen. And I was reading it. It was so fun. It was so simple. It was only like 3 sentences per page. Drawing was super dynamic, but so simple. So I thought to myself, I can do this too. And with the help of an iPad, if it was for pen and pencil, I could never do it. But iPad made it so like tangible that I thought I could do this myself. So yeah.
So were those seeds always there? Because the fact that you really gave it a serious try only like 2 years ago, but you're being pulled into the kids section at Barnes and Noble just through your own interest. I mean, you can go anywhere in Barnes and Noble, but you go to the children's books. It seems like it was always there. Were you pushing that like aside and just trying to think, well, that's probably not a serious career. I shouldn't even entertain that until it finally kind of came bubbling up? Like,
Yeah.
that creative seed?
Yeah, I would, now that you mention it, I would say something like that. Like I was always drawn to it. And now that I have this gap year, I'm really, before I applied to law school, I was thinking to myself, everything that I want to do it now. And so that's when I started getting more serious about writing stories. And yeah, I think you're right. I've always loved children. I was a gymnastics coach, a babysitter. I love kids. I love playing with them. And so I have a really good idea on how their brains work, how their creativity works. You can say anything and they'll find it funny. And I love that. And I think that's what really fueled me and really drawn me to the children's book section because it's stuff that I could understand.
Yeah. And so after high school, did you decide to go to college? Did you work? What did you do before applying to law school?
Yeah, I went straight to college.
You did?
Straight to college, and then COVID happened. Did college at home, went back to college, and then now I'm here. And then I was trying to apply for law school.
And did you have a declared major or was it just general education, just kind of going through the motions to go through college at that point?
Yeah, I was in managerial economics, fancy word for business.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you applied for law school recently.
Yes.
And okay. And so take me back to 2 years ago when you start to put this idea into motion. How did you decide on the story that you wanted to write?
Gosh, I was really praying to God. I was praying to God, please give me an idea because I really want a best-selling sticker. That's what I really want. So I really prayed to God, please give me an idea. And I was helping my dad with something in the backyard, and all of a sudden it came to me. It was a story of a little sister wanting to be like the older sister. And so I told my dad, wait, I'll come back. I promise. Let me just write this down real quick. And that's how it started.
And you have sisters in real life?
Yes.
Okay. And are you the oldest or where do you fall in?
Yeah, I'm the middle child.
Oh, middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my book is all about being like the older sibling and about stealing the older sibling stuff because they want to be just like them. And so as the middle child, I did both. I was upset at my youngest son and I wanted to be like my oldest one.
And so you put this and what do you like writing it in at this time? Like, are you using your iPad to also do the artwork?
Yes, iPad all the way.
And is this something that you're working on like a little bit every day? Like, how does this kind of process go for you?
Yeah, it's definitely something I do every day. I really try. I'm not an artist. I really am not. But I learned how to use Procreate, the app that I use, and I was able to manipulate the lines, get the colors that I want. And so I'm still trying to figure out how Procreate works. But every day I try to make an effort. It's also kind of hard because I have a website and I put out plushies. So I'm trying to, branch out my book business into other stuff.
Yeah. And so this when this happened 2 years ago and you went running off, what did your dad say or think?
He thought, yeah, that's a great idea, but don't forget law school.
And then at that time you how long did it take you to write the first draft of the book?
Gosh, I think it took me about 4 or 5 months, even though it's so simple. You see my book and it's only one sentence.
But I can say working in animation, especially kids animation, simple is hard. It's very easy to complicate it. It's always easy to write more.
Yes.
It's hard to write less.
Yes.
Simple is the goal, and it's hard. So
Yeah.
that's good on you for for recognizing that. And so you're working on it a little bit each day. You're just like this is for some reason this idea is compelling you to go all the way with it, right?
Yeah, I truly feel God's blessing in it. I really feel his support because going back to that viral video, that night when I came back from Barnes and Noble, I was crying and I was by myself in my room. I told myself, or I was talking to God really, and I said, why did I do this? This is so embarrassing. I'm just going to quit right here, right now. I felt your support previously, but this was just too much for me. It was so humiliating. I don't want to do anything more. Then I went to sleep. And then later the next day, my sister tags me and she sends me the video. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is this? And so that's when I felt God's full support saying, just wait a little bit longer. I'm here for you. And after that, everything has been a little bumpy road, but it's still going up.
It's amazing. Yeah. Gosh, I love that. You go to sleep feeling one way, you wake up and it's like, almost a different world. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What happened overnight? So when you're writing this book, which is your first one, and it takes you several months and you do all the artwork for it too, right? So you're writing and you're drawing.
Yes.
And what is the process like of just showing it to people, getting feedback? How do you know when you're done? Or, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I show my friends and sisters the rough drafts and I asked them, I'm like, what do you think about this? And they would tell me, oh, maybe you should add this one, maybe make this a little bit more dynamic. And so I take in their opinions and I rearrange it. And I think that really helps for me a lot.
And what about like listening to your inner voice and like not taking certain feedback? Like, do you feel that kind of conflict? Only asking because as your first book, it's such an amazing like debut. It's such an amazing first book. So how did you navigate like wanting to preserve your own voice, but also taking the feedback of others?
Yeah, I didn't. I'm just kidding.
Whatever you say, got it, done.
Yeah, and so they would tell me like, I think you should write a little bit more, and I would always argue with them, saying like, no, like I want it simple, right? Because I find that's one thing, children's books, I think they write a little too much, and I think simple, as you said, is better. That's what you aim for.
And did you have any references that you were looking at, like going back to some of your favorite books and just kind of taking them in as you were writing this one?
Yeah, definitely the John Klassen book, the Where's My Hat? He gave me a lot of inspiration because so simple, so dynamic, but it was so entertaining. I loved it.
And so once you make the decision that you're done with this book, that you're done writing, you're done with the artwork, what do you do next? How does this self-publishing even work?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so self-publishing, it is something that a lot of people push for. And I kind of agree when you start out because it's just going through a publishing agency is so expensive. I've talked to other authors and they've told me that they've paid so and so amount for the same amount that I've paid for, but it's $3,000 more at least. And they tell me that, even though they have an agent, they paid for somebody, they don't actually help. And so as a self-publisher, you face the same thing. I don't have any help. I have to reach out, Google, I have to find my own opportunities. And that's just it's so hard.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you find that? How do you go from like having this book on an iPad to having the physical copy? How do you go through that printing process? I have no idea. What is that like?
Yeah, I was also so confused. So I went on my trusty TikTok and I looked up how to be a self-publisher.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so a lot of people recommended Alibaba, the Chinese manufacturing wholesale company. And I agree, it is really nice. But, then again, you have to make sure everything is perfect yourself. And being a first timer, you aren't exactly sure what to look out for.
And so in China. So you're contacting this manufacturer in China, and then what are you sending them? Like, are you sending them electronic PDFs? Are you sending, like, how do you figure out the measurements on your own? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So they, after discussing like quotas and all this and that, you find a company that you really like and they'll say, hey, can you send me your PDF? And so that's what you do. And for all you listeners out there that want to become a self-publisher, always send an NDA first. I would say that just to be safe and just, to be sure. And I would say send an NDA first, and then you can send your file. And then depending on the company, they'll really walk you through the whole process, which is so great.
And is this Zoom? Is this email? Are you like interfacing like with, are you hearing their voices? Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like, what a like a risk that is for a first time author, just to be like communicating with this company on the other side of the world. Like, how do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah. And so it's all through text messaging on the Alibaba app.
Okay.
And so sometimes I'm thinking to myself, is this a scam?
Right. Well, that's a normal thing to think of.
Yeah.
When you can't, yeah. Okay. But presumably, I mean, they do this all the time, so they know what they need from you in terms of what they're asking for.
Yes.
So you send them the PDF, and then what do they say?
And then they say, great, we can send you a sample for so-and-so amount. After you see the sample, let us know if you want to continue with the whole wholesale. And so you'll receive the sample after a week, which is really fast. Yeah. And then if you like it, you agree with it, and then they just start printing it right then and there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did you think when you first got your sample? It comes in the mail, you open up this package. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right?
It was amazing. I was so excited because it was my first book.
Yeah.
Like first
and
tangible.
You're holding Yeah. So how did it look to you? What did you look at like when you're, did you have any notes for them? Like,
so I ordered 2 samples from 2 different companies. And the first one I got, I was really excited because it was my first book, but I didn't like the colors because it wasn't as vibrant as I wanted it to be. So I was a little disappointed the first time around. And then when the second book came from the other company, I loved it so much.
Okay, that's an important thing that you just said, was that you ordered 2 copies from 2 different companies just to see what it was like. Okay. And then what company did you end up going with? Was that Alibaba or?
Yes, through Alibaba.
Alibaba Publishing or?
Yeah, so how Alibaba works is that it's basically a platform where all these wholesale companies gather. And so I chose one wholesale company from there and then another wholesale company. So I just chose wholesale B.
The one that you like better, that looked better?
Yes.
And did you have any other notes or reactions for them, or just like, this was great, go for it?
This is great, go for it.
Okay. And then what happens? Like, you order X amount of books. They say, we're going to get it to you in however long. And then what?
Yeah. And so it usually takes about 30, 45 days because they ship it through sea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. So it takes a long time. And and so it comes through your door usually by like a UPS or something, 13 different boxes. So it was just a lot of storage in the house.
How many did you order, can you say?
I ordered 500.
500?
First time around, yeah.
Wow, okay. Yeah. And then what was your plan? Here you have like 13 boxes of books. What is your family thinking?
They're thinking, oh, well, good luck. Good luck.
Where are we putting all this?
Yeah. And so when I received it, I didn't realize it'd be that much. And I was so intimidated. I was like, I don't know 500 people.
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh. But thankfully, at the time, I was in woodshop class and I did some martial arts class. And so...
But you're in woodshop at this time?
Not this time.
Oh, you mean back in high school?
Back last year, actually.
Oh, last year.
Yeah, yeah.
What were you taking? What shop?
In Corona.
Oh, okay. And martial arts.
Yeah, in martial arts.
Okay, cool.
I was trying to branch out and make some friends.
Okay, I need 500 friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so those were the two places I frequented. And people were so nice. They bought books for me there and they gave it out to their friends and family. So I thought, yeah, this is going well.
Great, great. And are you also holding readings at this time? Like, do you have a strategy in terms of getting it out, or is it just pure word of mouth at this point?
Yeah. Right now I am kind of busy with my plushies and my second book. And I don't actually have Who Took My Stuff, which is my book, just yet because it's still being sent over by sea. And so readings are a little difficult, but right now, mostly through social media.
Through social media. And how far in time was the Barnes & Noble reading to when you got that shipment of 500 copies? What was the time there?
Oh, gosh, I think it was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And in that 6 months, was it just like friends and friends of friends that were like, oh, Agnes is selling her first book, like this is cool? Like, is that how you were kind of getting it out there? Or were you doing anything else at that time?
Yeah, so it was friends and family and also book events that I Googled. I went to those.
And what is a book event exactly?
Yeah, it's like a book fair.
Book fair.
And so it's deemed as like children's book fair. And so there's some in SoCal, there's some in NorCal. And so I travel to both and
it's like on a weekend and then people set up booths, or is that kind of and is it a lot of independent authors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of independent authors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And oh gosh, booths are really great, but they're so expensive. So expensive. They are, guess how much you would think they are?
A booth at
Children's book fair.
Like 1,000 or something? Or?
Yeah, 1,000 plus.
Oh, God.
And you're not even guaranteed to sell and make a profit. You know, you're really just there to market your book.
It's writing a book like that. It's like starting a business where you're going to lose money for the first however long until hopefully it turns around or it doesn't. And so you have to put your own money into buying all these batches of books. You have to put your own money into these book fairs.
Yes,
and you just have to hold out that, okay, this is going to pay off, but not immediately.
Yeah, because there's not even that many book fair events. And so thankfully, thank God that at the time I was looking, there were book fairs that were coming up in a month or two. So I was able to schedule those and get that done.
And are you working at this time, or what are you doing in your off time when you're not launching your self-publishing career?
Yeah, so I just quit my job as a legal assistant. I worked remote. And I thought to myself that, you know what, if I stay at this job, I'm not going to explore other options. And so there are things that I am curious about and want to pursue. So I've been sending out resumes, but job market's not that great.
But you were working as a legal assistant.
Yes.
And how happy was your dad at that point when you got that job?
He was so happy. He was like, you get to work at home too. You get to be with me. I love it.
And you're on your way to okay.
Yeah.
But you quit that now and you are focused full time on that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So then you're doing these book fairs. And then how do you find out about this opportunity at Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, you just call Barnes & Noble.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. I think most people wouldn't even realize that they could do that.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of shows you who I am. Like I was so desperate and I'm still so ambitious. And so I called Barnes & Noble, multiple Barnes & Noble, and only the Corona one got back to me. And so I was able to email them and have inconsistent emailing because it wasn't that great.
Why wasn't it that great?
I don't know. I think it's just a Barnes & Noble thing because I've talked to other Barnes & Noble. They've given me their emails too, but nobody reached out to me except for Corona.
And were they like, oh yeah, sure, come on. Like, what is that email exchange like? Do you just email them, hey, I'd love to do a signing, and do you have to pay for that, or what do they do?
Completely free.
It is?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the downside is no advertising.
They don't do advertising, so they
Yeah.
expect you to do it yourself.
Yes.
But that's kind of cool that Barnes & Noble, which is, such a huge corporate chain, that they're allowing authors to come in like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so was it just like you picked the first available date or some date in the future? You're like, okay, this is it. And they say, what? We have a table for you, and then you have to do the rest.
Yeah.
Like, what is that process?
Yeah, so they told me it took me about 4 months to get it settled because that's how inconsistent the emailing was.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's frustrating. I
Yeah.
hate when people don't write back.
Yeah. All right.
But it shows, look at what happened to you when it did happen. So
Yeah.
you have to stick with it no matter what.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So, okay. So it's taking a little while. They're dragging their feet, getting back to you. Takes 4 months to schedule.
Yes. And so when they finally got back to me, they were so nice and they apologized. They said, I'm so sorry for the late response. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. And they gave me a list of December and they said, because you've been so patient, we'll let you have the first pick of the month. And so I prayed to God. I said, God, what day should I schedule it at? And, it took some time, but all of a sudden I got this idea that, okay, if I do it in the beginning of the month, right, people are still looking for Christmas presents, right? And so that's when I did December 8th. Because I thought December 16th, people are going to be looking elsewhere, right? December 8th, people will have more time. They'll go to different stores that they usually don't go to, hoping to find something. And so that's what I did.
That's so smart. That's so smart. So
Thank
December 8th was your date.
Yes.
Okay. And then how do you get ready for it?
So I only thought I was doing a reading. And so I went out because I'm a girl. I love to buy dresses. So I bought a dress. I did my hair and makeup. And I was just practicing literally throughout the whole time of notice. Every time that, I was thinking about it, I would practice how I would read the book, stand in front of the mirror and try to practice, okay, how do I engage with kids? And so that's what I was doing.
And what makes a good reader? Like, what did you find when you were practicing, like reading your own book?
Yeah, I would say, and I would definitely say it's being enthusiastic with your voice. And I would say that's a given. A lot of people will be like, yeah, sure. But when you actually read it and you hear other people, they don't do that. They think they're doing it, but not to other people. And so another thing that I like to do is just add in random noises because that's what catches kids' attentions. I was at a library doing a reading and there's this part of my book where it goes ra-ta-ta, right? But this time I was like, I'll just sing it as an opera voice, whatever, right? And all the kids literally went, yeah.
Okay. So you're like looking for certain passages to almost sweeten
Yes.
like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're rehearsing, you're practicing. Is it safe to say like this Barnes and Noble event was in your mind like the biggest event that you had scheduled, like bigger than the book fair? Like were you kind of looking at this like, oh, this is going to be a big deal?
Yes. Yeah. Because it was just going to be me. It was just going to be me there. And, Barnes and Noble is such a big company. So I was like, wow, the honor.
That's awesome. And you said they said you could stay as long as you want, but typically how long do they allow authors to set up their table for?
It was only my one time at Barnes and Noble. And at the Corona one, they said, yeah, you're starting at 2. And so you could stay whenever you want. So I said, okay.
And where was the table like in the store? Like, was it near the children's section? Like, how did they decide where they place you?
Yeah, they placed me near the front. And I actually asked them if I could move to the children's book section, but they said, no, sorry. We usually keep the authors in front because there's more foot traffic there. And I think it was just policy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, okay, so you're leading up to it, you're excited, and the day comes. And how are you, what do you bring to the event? Like, how many books are you bringing? Like,
yeah, I brought a box, and in a box is around 25 books. And so when they said that, yeah, this is your booth, I thought, oh my gosh, 25 books is not enough. So I went home and I brought more. Didn't even need them.
And so why did you think that it was a reading versus a, like, what was it actually called? Like a book signing? Is that what it's, or just like a meet and greet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the email it said, yeah, you're going to do a reading. And that's all they said. So I said, okay.
Okay. So then you go back home, you get more boxes, you bring it back, you kind of set up, make the table kind of look nice.
Yes.
And then you sit down and
then just waiting, just waiting with no phone, just me and my thoughts.
Yes. And you said that you ended up reading to a couple kids. Like, did you get some like interest from kids that were like walking by, or how did that kind of impromptu reading happen?
Yeah. So the reading comes with it, apparently. And they said, I'm going to make an announcement. And whoever listens, they're going to go over to the children's section and be there. So I was there and only 3 kids. It wasn't like a busy time because who goes to Barnes and Noble, on a Sunday at like 1 to 2 p.m. And so not that many kids. And I was kind of discouraged, but it's better than nothing.
And how was that reading for you? Did you just try to forget all the noise and just be like, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to read the way I rehearsed. Doesn't matter how many kids are here. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I was really trying to think positively. I was like, okay, like maybe these kids will really like my books, right? And, that day, the 3 kids were very talkative. And so it's hard to progress reading a story when they're so talkative. So I thought that was another jab to my day. I was like, dang, I can't even get through my book.
So working in like TV animation for kids. So what is common practice that studios do is when we're like writing episodes of television, they will go to preschools and test out the stories.
Oh.
And so what we have to do is like we'll turn a script or an outline into what they call a storybook. And it's just for testing purposes, but they'll do like some storyboards and they'll have someone from the education department read it to kids.
Oh, wow.
And then us writers get to, we either see it live. We used to go before COVID, like sit there and we would see like a class of kids, but they would pull like maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And they'd be like 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds up to 5. And sometimes when one kid gets distracted, they all get distracted. And then I remember, and of course, like you're thinking what you're going through of like, oh my gosh, like this is my whole like career, and like this kid is wandering around and then he like flops on the floor and then another kid does. And they're just, and what these networks do is they'll rate the comprehension. And so it's like, you're going like, you sweated over writing the story and then these kids are like, getting distracted and you have to remember, this is my audience.
Yeah.
This is normal.
Yes.
Like, but also like, oh my gosh. And so I remember one time they were reading one of my episodes, storybooks to the kids. And one kid goes, this is taking forever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I went to college for this, like my whole life. And so, and that's just the thing of like, you can't control the kids and there's always something to learn, but they're also kids. And if they're hungry, you can only do so much. So I feel for you when you're just like, you know what, if they were talking or whatever, you just got to carry on.
Yeah, and smile.
And did any of those families buy a book or what was the reception?
Yeah, they didn't buy a book. Yeah, they didn't buy a book. So that was They're another
like,
jab.
Thank you. We heard the story. Now we're good.
Yeah.
Oh. And so a couple families did. And I think you mentioned it wasn't a particularly busy day at the store. No.
Yeah, no.
And so you just had a couple families come up to you. And I think I read somewhere that you said, was your family in church at the time or something where like they didn't show up?
Yeah, they were at church.
Yeah. And then did you say like, hey, come over later just so someone can come to my table or no?
No, I was too embarrassed. Yeah. And so that's what made the video even more embarrassing because I told my family and friends, oh, it went well. Oh. Yeah. And then they saw the truth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so whenever somebody says like, Agnes, was that you actually filming the video yourself? No. It's like, why would I do that? That was so embarrassing.
Wow. And so the few copies that you did sell that day, what were those interactions like with the kids and the families? Did they come up to you and just like, oh, hi, and what is this book you have? Like, what was that like?
I grabbed onto them like no other and I said, please, please.
Shaking the money out of them, please.
Please. No, I was teaching myself, right? Okay, Agnes, be more bold. And that's the thing. I'm not really a salesperson person, like I don't like being pushy. I won't ever tell my friends or family, like, here's my website because, I don't want to be that person. And so I would go, hi, hello, louder and louder. And there are some really nice people and they really responded well with my whole sibling idea. And so they bought some books.
And then did they ask you questions about it? Like, oh, what's the story? Or
Yeah.
how long have you been working on it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really nice. I enjoyed it. I didn't want them to go because I'm like, I'm so lonely.
And so those interactions gave you like a little bit of a lift.
Yes,
But
definitely.
overall, it was just not the day that you were expecting.
No, because I would say they came in a span of like 1 to 3 hours. And after the third hour, it was just silence. Like nobody was coming. Nobody was coming up to me. And that's when I was like, what am I doing?
And you said there was one employee who kind of came over and just talked to you. And what did she say to you?
Yeah, she was just being so nice. And we were around the same age, actually. And so we were talking about schools, friends, just other things, really. And I was so grateful for that. I was so grateful.
And what time did you decide to pack it up?
Gosh, I think when my stomach really grumbled.
Oh yeah, because you're not. Did you get a break? Did you eat? Were you just supposed to sit there?
I could have gotten a break, but I didn't want an opportunity to miss somebody, so I starved.
So you're like, okay, at this point, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
The day is what the day was. It's time to go home.
Yeah, and I was hungry, humiliated, and I was like, I'm just gonna go shopping in the area. So yeah.
So you kill time, and you're just. What are you thinking at this time? Are you trying not to think about the day?
Yeah.
Just trying to distract you? Let me buy something and yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to have that instant gratification feeling. And I felt so bad for my parents because they were so excited to hear. And they were like, oh, how was the thing? And I told them, oh, it went well. It was fine. And they kept trying to ask more questions. But I was like, it's fine.
Yeah, you probably knew once you go home, everyone's gonna be like, how was it?
Yeah.
And you're gonna be like the center of attention. You're just like, I need to be left alone.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want to be here.
So then you're kind of wandering around, and then ultimately you decide to go back home, and then that's what happens. They're like,
Yes.
how was it? Tell us. Yeah.
I just wanted to cry. I did cry.
Did they tell something was up?
Yeah, they asked my dad, he asked me, he's like, why are you so agitated? But when a parent says that to you, you just get more agitated.
Yeah, no, that doesn't help.
It's like, my gosh.
I'll show you agitated.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, you just had to be alone. You just kind of had to go off and just like shut the door and just be like, "Ugh."
Like cry my makeup off. Yeah.
And what are you thinking in terms of like next steps? So you're like, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking that. I said, I apologized to God really because I knew that he gave me support, but I just couldn't handle it. And so I said, God, I'm so sorry. You know, I know you gave me this talent. I know you gave me this creativity, but I just can't do it anymore. So I felt so sorry to God. I felt like, you know, he could have used his talent for somebody else. And then I told myself, I'm going to be 65 and I'm going to have like 500 books still left. You know, I'm just going to be passing them out.
It's pretty hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, you know, rocks were crushing on my shoulders.
And so you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next morning, and then is it your older sister or your younger sister that brings this to your attention?
Yeah, younger sister.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So she sent it to me, and I'm like, what the freak? And I go, that's not me. Because I was so embarrassed.
So you just thought someone took a video of like, look at this author by herself, and now it's online.
Yes.
And which is, you know, I mean, talk about twisting the knife. Like
Yeah,
after, you know, you're like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And then when did you know that, okay, wait, there's something a little bit different now?
Oh gosh, I would say when I started seeing the positive comments. The positive comments were really helpful.
This is the one time where you should read the comments.
Yes.
Mostly it's like, don't read any comments online. This is where you're like, hey, wait a minute. And what are some of the comments saying?
Gosh, a lot of them were so encouraging. They said, go queen. They said, don't give up. I'm so proud of you. You know, like, I'll buy a book. And they said, wow, I love this story. I'll support you. And then like, I went on my page and I'm not kidding you, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 second, every single second there was a new follower, a new comment. And I was like, my gosh.
And how are they finding you? Did you get tagged in that Barnes & Noble video, or how do they know about your profile?
Yeah, so I guess my sister, she tagged my author page, and then the person who uploaded it tagged my author page.
And so people are finding your website, and then how are you feeling now? You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. I'm not that good yet.
And people are going to your website at this point. They're buying the book.
Yes.
How is that feeling?
Gosh, I still get so excited every single time I see an email that says new order, and I thank God every single time. I say thank you, God.
And you sold out the rest of the copies of your initial batch
Yes.
within 3 days.
Yes, within 3 days. Yeah.
And so now, what is that process? Because you're, as a self-published author, then comes shipping, right? How do you do that?
Yeah.
What is that like?
Good question. Good question. So shipping, I am not that well versed. Actually, I never knew how to ship a package before this. And so I learned about Pirate Ship, where it's able to print out or give you a list about different post office shipment rates. And so I used that for the most part. But I didn't understand that it varies like through location and through weight. And so truth be told, I do lose money when it comes to shipping. Yeah.
But you ship all the rest of the 500 out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like for anybody out there too, if they have bulk orders, I didn't know that the post office, US Post Office, has a backside where they have a cart and you could just dump everything out there and they'll just take it for you.
Yeah, you don't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
See, that's great. And that's what asking these questions, because there's, the self-publishing route is becoming more common with emerging authors.
Yes.
And it's all these things that you don't know about. It's like you sell your book, great. And it's like, oh wait, I have to ship it.
Yes.
Oh wait, I have to ship it again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then now what do you tell your parents? Not now. I mean, at the time that this was turning, are you telling them, hey, so the day didn't go so well, but this video went viral? Like, what are you telling them?
Yeah, so they were still sleeping at the time. So I was literally like a little kid at Christmas. I ran over to their bedroom and I go, Mom, Dad, look. And they were like, what? And so they were super excited. They couldn't believe it. They went like, thank you, God, praise God. And so, yeah.
And what are you doing, like, in terms of at this point, your next steps? Like, now you're thinking, okay, I have to buy more from the publishing company.
Yeah.
Because more orders are coming in. So you were doing a pre-order at the time, right?
Yes.
So what was that like? What was your process after you were shipping them all out? More orders kept coming in, right?
Yeah. So I was actually thinking of stopping, of like just completely quitting, because it was just really way too much for me, as in just the whole wait and the whole marketing process. I really did not like it. It's just so hard for me because I'm new at it. And so I wanted to quit. I didn't order my bulk yet. Because I was thinking to myself, do I still want to do this? Do I not want to do this? But in the end, after like a week or so, I told myself, yeah, I am going to do this. But unfortunately, the original shipping company or original book company was out and they couldn't respond to me in time. So I had to start all over, basically, ask for samples from new companies. And that took another process itself.
So you touched on how just the difficulty. What was the biggest challenge in handling that sudden surge of attention? You go from like a really low point to like you're, skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It's kind of an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it was definitely, first it was, yeah, praise God. Second, my gosh.
Help.
Yeah, because I didn't hook up my orders to be fully automatically read by my printer, my thermal printer, right? And so I had to individually write out the addresses, the people's names, because there was no need for me at the time.
Right. Well, no wonder you quit your job. This is self-publishing is a full-time job because you have to handle every part of the process. So when you said it wasn't hooked up to your thermal printer, is this for shipping labels that you're printing out, or what do you mean by that?
Oh yeah, shipping labels. Yeah.
So you had to manually enter everything.
Yeah, about like 400, I think.
And that's what you have to, because all this is for the first time. So it's like you don't know what the process is like. You're just kind of making mistakes, fixing it, right?
Yeah. And like there's just so many things to be learned from it, and I'm still trying to learn how to make a website. I'm still learning how to, print efficiently and everything.
And so you get the next batch, you're selling that. And when do you decide to write a second book?
I decided probably 3 weeks um, after the whole blow up and, being sold out. I told myself, I do have a lot of stories that I want to write. And so I'll give it another try. But this time, I'm planning on not being a self publisher. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm trying to find a literary agent. And so that way I could have a support of a publishing company and they could help me market.
Great. And have you gotten some interest, some people reaching out from that world? Or are you now taking your story and reaching out to people and saying, hey, here's who I am. This is what happened. And can we talk?
Yeah, so I'm still figuring out how to do it. So I figured that I would finish my story first in case they say, like, oh, we're trying to find somebody who's already done or we want it to happen now, rather than me saying, oh, well, can you wait another like 3 more months?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And you also have a plushie.
Yes,
So
I do.
how did you decide to make a plushie?
Oh gosh, a lot of people said that my character was really cute. So I was really grateful for that. So I said, maybe I can make a plushie out of this. But actually, I really wanted to do blind boxes.
What's a blind box?
Yeah, so it's so popular these days where basically you buy a box, right? And there's, let's say, 4 to 8 different kind of figures, and you don't know which one you're gonna get, right? And so that's what I wanted to do, like pictures from my books, right, into tangible little figurines, and you just collect them.
I love that. I love. Is that something that you're going to do next?
I really hope so, but it was so expensive.
So expensive.
Yeah.
So you decided on an adorable, like squishy plushie.
Yeah.
And how did you go about making that?
Yeah, so it was the same thing, Alibaba, where I found a picture of my book that I really liked, and I was just reaching out to a whole bunch of different wholesale plushie companies this time. And I said, here's my idea. Can I see your samples? Got the samples, liked one, and just went for it.
And we're going to grab it really quick here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the plushie right here for people that are watching on video. The book has been, you were kind enough to bring a copy for me, and I can't wait to read it, and I can't wait to read it to my daughter. So does the plushie have a name?
The plushie does not have a name.
Does not have a name.
Yeah, because one of the things that I really liked about children's stuff is that the kids can make their own names for it, And so that's what I really enjoyed. And I hope that other kids can just name them whatever they want. So yeah.
That's wonderful. That's amazing. And how have the plushie's been selling? How have the books been selling now? Because it's still on. I noticed the books, your first book is still on pre-order.
Yes. So my books are currently on pre-order. They're still on the way. My plushies are available, and I have been getting orders from them. I just did a giveaway, and so I got a few calls yesterday about it.
That's amazing. And what's the kind of feedback that you've been getting from parents reading your books to their kids?
Some of them have actually cried while reading my book, and that's the kind of effect that I want. I want the parents to cry.
Yes.
But really, it's so that way. It's kind of like the Giving Tree, where when you read it when you're younger, you're like, what is this? It's like a stupid book. But when you're older, you start to realize the implications and what that tree did. And you start thinking about your own life and, your own actions. And that's what I really hope my book can do for the parents.
And you mentioned that the marketing side has been tough for you, or you don't like it.
Yeah.
And when I first went onto TikTok, and I've been seeing your TikTok videos, they're really funny.
Oh,
they're
really?
great. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
what part of the marketing has been tough for you, or just coming up with like funny videos that communicate what you want to say? Mm-hmm. What part of that is tough for you? That marketing process?
Yeah, I would say. Well, first, I'm not that good at it. I don't have great equipment. I just have my phone, really. And it's so different now because of COVID. I feel like COVID, there was a huge surge, right? The really it time was COVID for social media. And so now that COVID's done, everybody's seeing, oh my gosh, this person gets money from social media. So everybody's doing it. So your video is being pushed out while other people's videos are being pushed up.
So there's even more competition than there was before.
Yes.
And what did you think of the potential TikTok ban? What were you a bit nervous about getting the word out there? If because that was most of your following was from TikTok, right?
Yeah, I was so nervous. I was like, this is it. I'm done. I was like, I'm going to have 1,000 books now. It's over. So I was so nervous. But then, God really came through.
Yes, and now thankfully it's been extended, and it seems like we'll have TikTok for a while now.
Yeah.
And so, how do you decide to come up with these videos that you make to promote, the plushie? Or I remember in one video with your plushie, you run it over with a car. You do some sort of you jump on it, right? Like, how do you decide where does this come from?
It's so funny because I have a dog. And I love my dog, but I hate walking my dog. I hate it.
Really?
Yes, I hate walking with a burning passion.
Why is that?
I think it's just so boring. Like, or maybe because when I go with my older sister, she freaking speed walks. And I'm not kidding you. She could walk for like 3 or 4 hours straight. And I think that's just trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah.
She's out walking her trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when I go on walks with my dog, that's when I spend time with God, and I start talking to God, and I say, God, please help me make a video, give me ideas for what to do. And usually by the end of my walk, I have an idea. And so that's usually how I go about it.
And what are you editing? What are you using you're shooting on your phone?
Yes.
And then what do you do when you have the footage?
Yeah. So I use CapCut.
CapCut.
Yes.
I do too. That's great, right?
Yeah, I love CapCut. So good. It's honestly so versatile. I love it.
And what kind of response have you been getting from it? Because I feel like that is a way for people to see the personality of the author. Whereas, in the past, an author has just been their photo in the back of the book, and that's it. So this is a way for people to just see you.
Yes. But I also find that difficult because I still feel like I'm held on a platform where I'm a children's book author, right? But I'm 24 years old. I'm a girl. I have humor, right? And I want to show more of who I am. But sometimes all the time, I'm really conflicted because do I want to show this? Is it okay as a children's author to make a video like this? I find it funny, but I don't know if other people, my audience, will.
And what are you finding? Are people laughing? Are people finding themselves just liking you as a person?
Yeah, I would say so. But there are more stuff that I would like to show. And that's something I'm a little iffy about. And that's one thing about growing social media is that since I'm still in the beginning stage, I can still have time to experiment with who I am, with what kind of content I want to show, and things like that.
And have you found a rhythm to the videos? Do you find
Nah.
No, interesting.
Yeah, I have not.
And you find certain ones hit better than others? Like, like when you were running over your plushie with a car. Like that was, that kind of attention grabbing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And so the ones that are more extravagant, right? Like, having a plushie run over by a car and just kneeing it, like that, those did much better.
That's amazing. And so where are you at on your second book right now? You said that you are writing it.
Yes.
And how long do you think you have left in that process?
Gosh, I'm a procrastinator. And so I'm trying to aim it for about 2 weeks, actually. I have a few pages left, but I am helping out my dad with certain stuff like construction. And so I've had to put my book aside for a while.
I noticed in some of your other promotional videos, it seemed like you were doing little exercises to get kids warmed up, or there were things that you would do just to kind of rally their attention.
Yeah.
Are there things that you do in the beginning, before you start reading, that just to try to, get the kids in the zone to pay attention?
Yeah, for sure. I was a gymnastics coach, and so I learned a lot of kid stretches. I always say, okay, everybody, let's start off with some afternoon or morning stretches, depending on what time it is. And I'll say, good morning, sky, good morning, toes, good morning, sky, good morning, toes. And so I'll always do stuff like that.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And that just kind of gets it out of their system a little bit, and then you find that they're ready to sit and listen, hopefully.
Yeah, I always have this script where I say, so there's this one thing where I do where we go into a straddle position and we make pizza. And so I always say, now that we've all eaten our pizza, why don't I tell you a little story, a story about a girl who loses all her stuff. So yeah.
And I think this is a good opportunity for you, if you could, to just summarize the book's story, your first book.
Yeah.
Like, just what is that story about? You mentioned it's based on its sibling story about taking your older sibling stuff to want to be like them.
And that's exactly what it is. It's about a paper bag girl who has a routine every single day, but one day, all her stuff goes missing. Spoiler alert, it's her baby sister who wants to be just like her. And so it's a story about older siblings realizing that, love comes in so many different ways that your sibling doesn't steal your stuff, maybe sometimes to make you angry, but it's really because they love what you do and they want to be just like you.
And yeah, I think every sibling can relate to that. And your first feeling is frustration, anger, where is it? And then you realize, and I think what you said was beautiful, is that it's their way of showing love.
Yes, yeah.
Because kids imitate.
Yes,
They copy.
Yeah.
And so if they're copying you, that means they want to be like you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And so I noticed too in one of your videos, this is probably about your next book, you were soliciting stories from people,
Yes.
sibling stories. Is that right?
Yes.
What was that that you were asking for exactly?
Yeah, so another thing that I found out is that people love engaging videos. And so I asked people for their sibling stories so I could make it into a book. Whatever comment I like the most, I will make a book and then I'll give it to them. And if I really like it, I will, mass produce it and then dedicate it to them.
Wow. So it's part of a giveaway?
Yes.
But then are you also going to incorporate their story into a book?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because like I said, people love engaging stuff. And so I wanted the readers to be a part of the story. I wanted somebody to feel special. I wanted them to go to their sibling or something and say, "Hey, look, I have a book about us." I think that would be so beautiful.
Yeah, and that's something too that has to do with self-publishing, but also just in the age of social media where you're directly interacting with your readers.
Yes.
That's something, that's, totally new as of a couple years, right? Like in the social media age. And so you're finding a way to just strengthen that bond, right?
Yeah.
With this second book coming out, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, what are your future plans?
Gosh, my future plans. Well, hopefully I really want my book to go big and far. I really hope for the blind boxes. I am hoping to sell out so I can get started on my new book and I could be more focused on that. Remodeling my website, just trying to make everything better, really. And also I think this is the most important, finding a clear career path.
And do you think that you found it? Do you think that there's something opening up for you in this direction?
Yeah, I really love children. I love writing about their stories. So I really would like to stay in like the children industry some way, some part, somehow.
Do you have like a drawer full of story ideas, or notes on your phone of like, this would be great, like ideas for the second, the third, the fourth book?
Yeah, I do. And I would say that every book that I plan on making will have that heartwarming moment, like the Giving Tree, where not only the children will enjoy it, but the parents can also think about their own childhood and their own experience. And that way they can feel a part of the story as well.
And how has your family been through this process now, seeing you working on your second book, a plushie? What are they thinking through all this, like just seeing your journey?
Yeah, they are really surprised and very proud, I would say. Just recently, I got on the Korean news.
You did?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, which was weird. It was so weird.
How did that happen? Like a Korean news network, like here in California, or was it like overseas network?
I think it was overseas network.
Wow.
Yeah, because so I used to go to a Korean church and there was this international kid and he texted me out of nowhere and go, "Hey Agnes, like, are you an author by any chance?" I go, "Yes." And he goes, "I saw your videos." And I go, "What?" I go, "Oh my gosh, like probably from my page." And he goes, "No, like on the news." I go, "What the freak? I made it to the motherland."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Your dad must have been pretty proud of that, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was so crazy.
I think too, I saw an article either on page 6 6 or the New York Post or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, that's pretty wild.
Yes, yeah. It was wild. I would like to print out like all the articles and
You
like
should.
keep them.
And yeah, put them somewhere, like frame them. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Gosh, okay. So this is something I ask every guest. It's called the rule I break.
Okay.
Every industry has rules. Some are there for a reason, and some are just begging to be broken.
Okay.
So what's a rule in your field that you don't follow or believe in?
Oh, good question. This goes back to the whole book fair. Okay. Like I said, book fairs are so expensive, right? Like over $1,000. I'm 24. I don't have that much money, right? So I don't even know if I should be saying this, but I don't pay it.
I love this.
I don't pay it. What I do is I'll go to the event with a wagon. Okay. I'll put my books on there. I'll have a dinky sign that says, come ask me about my book and spin for a prize. And I will walk around the event and I will advertise myself like that.
That's brilliant.
Oh, really?
I'm glad you said it.
Thank
I love that because you say that you're not good at this or whatever, but you clearly have a knack for for figuring it out. And I think it's probably better that there's a girl with a wagon and books, which is like more visually interesting than a table because everyone else looks more or less the same, like with their booths. And you're going around and you look legit because it's a book fair and you're just like, oh, this is just her booth. And it's, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you. I love that.
I'm so embarrassed every single time I do it. And they also have a sign. Some of them have signs that say, don't do this. Like, don't, if you didn't buy a booth, you can't come and do this. But I still go anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? Kick you out and then maybe you already sold a few books by then or something?
Exactly.
And did you find those book fairs where you did sell some copies?
Yes, I did. I would say in the Bay Area, that's where it really happened.
And like near San Francisco?
Yes.
So you were really driving all around Southern California.
Yeah, I really was.
Wow.
Yeah, I was desperate.
Wow. So what were some of the other cities that you went to that helped you?
I went to LA, actually. LA has this huge children's book fair. So that was my first event. Where I had my wagon and I walked around in the heat.
I love this wagon. That's great. That's so smart.
Yeah, thank you.
That's so smart because look, as a self-publishing, you're already like, working outside the system. You're figuring it out on your own and you have to get creative.
Yeah.
And that's one way to do it. And there's always loopholes in every industry where you're like, wait, I could do that, or I could just like do this instead.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank
I'm glad.
you. Oh my
That's
gosh,
great.
thank you.
I love that. I love that. And so having gone through this now, like you said, your second book, you're going to be looking for a publisher, a publishing house. Is there anything that you would do differently looking back on this like journey where things turn so suddenly for you? Is there any advice that you would give yourself when you were starting out?
Oh, yes. Definitely, I would say just do it, Nike it. Where, same thing with the whole wagon thing, same thing with the Barnes and Noble, cold calling people, cold emailing people, networking. Just go for it, do it. The worst that can happen is a no. And when that happens, you just say, okay, thank you, bye, right? There's more people, more opportunities. You just got to make it yourself.
This is something I like to end every interview with. It's a rapid fire round.
Okay.
So just first thing that comes to mind, you can say as little or as much as you'd like. What's the last book you read?
Oh gosh. It is Tinkerbell, Starlight of the Wings. I love Tinkerbell.
Is that a children's book or
I
what kind
actually
of book?
don't really know. It's like a novel.
Oh,
actually.
a novel. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
So
a
it's
novel.
like maybe YA or something
Yeah.
like. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
What's a movie you love rewatching?
Oh, Boss Baby.
Boss Baby,
I
good
love
one.
Boss Baby.
If it wasn't this, what's another career field you could see yourself in?
Oh, actually, your job.
Well, really?
Yeah, I think you're living my dream. Like, actually.
We'll talk after. I'll give you some tips.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I could certainly help you.
Thank you.
Worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh, worst piece. Oh, why bake why bake a chicken at 15 minutes for 15 minutes at 350 when you can bake it at 1 minute for 3,500 degrees?
And what does that mean to you?
It means just drop everything and go for it at some really risky pace.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, or best piece of advice would be asking God first. It's definitely praying to God, meditating, waiting for His word, and seeing if your plan aligns with His.
Where can people find you or learn about your work?
Yeah, you could go on bookedwithhoney.com. It's only one H because two H's look ugly. And that's where you can see and purchase my products, and also Booked with Honey on Instagram and TikTok.
And I was going to ask you, because obviously I've been on your website. What does that mean? Booked with Honey. How did you come to that name?
Yeah, so I like to give out fake names.
What?
Yeah, I like when I go out to clubs or when I go out to Starbucks, when they ask me for my name, I'll always say, my name is Claire, my name is Blair, my name is Honey. And I really like the name Honey. And so I was thinking, should I make my author name Honey? But I really wanted to see Agnes Lee on like my first book. And so I was just thought Booked with Honey.
That's a great, just little phrase, Booked with Honey.
Oh, thank you.
That's very fun. Awesome. Well, Agnes, this was just a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming by and sharing your story.
Yeah, no, I had so much fun. Thank you, Brandon.